Welcome back to another riveting episode of the Solidarity Report. My name is Joshua Town. I am a union rank and file letter carrier of NALC Branch 55, Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Before we start, I want to remind our listeners that all individuals on the Solidarity Report podcast are union members speaking in a personal capacity, and their views are their own and not the views of any entity that is spoken on or about during this program. If you wish to get in contact with us at the Solidarity Report, please reach out at solidarityreportpodcast@gmail.com. Boy, do we have a ham and potatoes kind of show for you guys on this episode. However, before we can feast on some heavy information, I would like to have my co-host introduce himself, and then we will set the table.
Hey, thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me on again. My name's Graig Samoluk. I am the branch president of NALC Branch 334, Framingham Merged. I'm also one half of the President's Roundtable, which can be found on the Next Generation Carriers Network. And I guess I would be considered one-fifth of the Next Generation Carriers Network regular show. So thanks for having me, Josh.
No, thanks for hopping aboard on the Solidarity Report. I am glad that we were able to do this. The people behind the Solidarity Report have been following the BP lockout of the United Steelworkers 7-1, and we are excited to have Eric Schultz on, the president of that local, with us tonight. President Schultz, welcome aboard.
Hey guys, welcome. Thank you guys for having me.
Sure. Eric, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got involved, like when you started, how you got involved with the union, maybe like your origin story before we get into the what we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah, sure. So I hired into British Petroleum Whiting Refinery back in October of 2009 as a machinist. I went through our apprenticeship here for 4 years. Um, Almost as soon as I finished the apprenticeship, became a journeyman, I was appointed as a divisional representative. There was a vacancy, some movements, and so I've been on the union board since I believe it was July of 2014, and I've been the president for about 5 years now. As far as roots in union, my father was a NIPSCO, he's a USW member for 43 years before retiring. He worked for the public utility around here in Northwest Indiana. He was a NIPSCO worker at a local generating station. If apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, he was a maintenance worker at a generating station, and I'm a maintenance worker at an oil refinery.
Yeah, I think that's something you always find in unions where I think that everybody I run into said, well, my father was in the union, my mother was in the union. It is a family business, because my father was in the NALC before me.
Yeah, in
Before,
Northwest Indiana, it is a way of life for us.
yeah.
I think I don't fall into that tree. My mom was a union worker for a state hospital, but then she ended up leaving because opportunities came up. But she wasn't big into unions, so it's really for this whole experience for me is like learning more about different unions and how we can coexist and create better life environments for all of us.
Yeah. So before we get started, we heard that there was an event that occurred last night. People inside the refinery informed us that the refinery experienced a power disruption Sunday evening, causing numerous units to go into upset. They told us the equipment tied to the refinery sulfur recovery process, including both tail gas units at the sulfur recovery unit, went down, resulting in hazardous release of hydrogen sulfide, sulfur dioxide, and other toxic gases into the atmosphere. The conditions were serious enough that replacement workers were repeatedly required to wear self-contained breathing apparatus for several hours while responding to the unit's upset inside the refinery. Yet British Petroleum failed to warn nearby picketers, the union hall, or the surrounding community about the ongoing hazardous release. This is unacceptable failure to communicate a serious safety risk, and yet another example of Petroleum prioritizing operations over safety of workers and the community. It also raises serious concerns about British Petroleum's continued lack of transparency when employees, nearby residents, and in the broader community are affected. Do you have a comment on that by any chance, Eric? That just came to Josh and I's attention before we came on tonight.
Yeah, I mean, so we had just got back home from London, which we'll talk about in a little bit. We just got home from London yesterday, and started getting reports that there was some pretty major upsets inside the refinery, major flaring events. So came back up here to the Union Hall to see what was going on, and we've got this is a small community. We've all got friends and family that are inside the refinery that work for the company. The refinery used to be a very tight knit place. So we daily get reports from people that are inside the refinery, and we were hearing last night that the entire refinery was in a tailspin. Major flaring events across the refinery. Lost our sulfur recovery unit, which lost two tail gas units that basically scrub SO2, H2S, and other toxins before it gets into the process. So when those units went down, they were putting a lot of additional hazards into the process. So they were forcing everybody inside the plant to don SCBA in order to get out there. They were telling people either get back to your bunkers and shelter in place, and if you're out on a unit and you can't get back, don SCBA. These are the reports that we're getting. Meanwhile, we've got picketers on the outside, and no one. They're more important. They're more worried about the reputation right now than the safety of people or the public. So instead of doing the right thing and coming out and talking to the picketers and asking them to leave, or putting out a blast to the community, they decided to just keep it quiet. So we've got a lot of people that are upset about what happened last night, and rightfully so.
Yeah, just to add to that, you would think for those who don't remember British Petroleum, or they used to be called BP, or they're still called BP, think about 16 years ago, 15 years ago, where they dumped about a couple million gallons of oil into the Gulf of Mexico. You'd think they learned their lesson from dealing with the public and how many people died and what they did to just the water and the life in the water. And it shows you that, yeah, lessons were not learned from that. It's pretty scary.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I got to be clear, like we're not rooting for bad things to happen
No.
inside. We want that's our friends and family that are in there, a lot of them, and it's our work. We want something to go back to. But the fact that the company feels it's okay to knowingly be putting out hazardous releases, telling their employees inside to don SCBA, and not communicating to the local community and not communicating to the picketers on the line, that shows who we're dealing with. And this has been an issue. Our local communities, Whiting, East Chicago, and Hammond, are the three cities that encompass the refinery. Residents have for years been upset with the company being very quiet when we're having upsets and releases. So about a year or two ago, the company came out with a Facebook page, and they try to be really forward facing, and we're going to do the right thing. We're going to notify people when there's events. But apparently, when there's a lockout, all bets are off, and they're going to keep quiet.
Well, corporations are going to be corporations, you know. And on that, we like the Solidarity Report first started when we had a friend called Delegate Dan who was on a lockout, and we went there and picketed with him on the Providence Hospital Butler lockout line. And I think it's very important that we revisit what's the difference between a lockout and a strike. Can you go into depth on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great point, because I've had family members, even as recent as a couple of days ago, say, "Hey, how's the strike going?" So a strike, so lockouts and strikes are both tools that are used during bargaining, but a strike is a tool that a union can utilize. It's when the union makes the decision to withhold work in order to put economic pressure on a company. A lockout is the inverse. That's when the company bans the workers, locks the gates, doesn't allow the workers to come in to put economic pressure on those families. So we had strike authorization. We had 98% strike authorization by our membership going into negotiations, and that's how we do it in oil. We we present the contract proposals and have our members vote on the contract proposals, as well as give the bargaining committee strike authorization prior to negotiations so that we come in ready to go. So we had 98% strike authorization, but it's not something we take lightly. We were on strike in 2015 as part of a national strike in oil, and it's we understand it's something that it's very serious. It's going to be painful for people, and it's something that we don't take lightly. So even though we had a 98% strike authorization, and even though the company had just volumes of ridiculous proposals on the table, we continue to try to work through things because we understand, like, that's a last resort. A strike is a last resort. The company, on the other hand, it became apparent to us from the very beginning that either they wanted us to strike, and if we weren't going to strike, they were going to lock us out. But long story short, so yeah, strike is a tool that the union members can utilize to put pressure on a company, and a lockout is something that the company can do to us.
So were your members willing to work under the old contract as long as the bargaining team in British Petroleum were working on a deal, or was it a deadline has to be done? Or I know you said they were they were going to lock you out regardless, but was there? I could just use the NALC as an example. Like our contract expires in May. I know we do have a no strike. We cannot strike. It's against the law because we're federal government. But were you guys gonna work through like the date of the end of the last? Sorry, I'm getting feedback. Of the contract.
Yeah, absolutely, and we did. Our contract expired February 1st. We went on rolling 24-hour extensions. The company they passed a cross proposal for a 28-day extension. And that's, to us, that's no. Let's get a deal. Let's bargain in good faith and get something. So we agreed to 24-hour rolling extensions. That was on February 1st. It wasn't until March 17th that the company issued us the notice, their intent to lock us out. So then on March 18th, so that was March 17th. On March 18th, we wrote them a letter, letting them know, like, hey, we think this is a bad idea. We believe that your lockout's illegal. We were asking that you continue to allow our members to work while we get back to the table and continue to bargain in good faith. It went for 2 weeks unanswered. During those 2 weeks that we sat there and waited for an answer from the company, our plant manager went on plant-wide videos, and it's also video that's posted to the general public, stating that the company A is willing to bargain in good faith, and B, the only way to get a deal is to agree to their March 17th proposal. So you tell me how you can bargain in good faith and tell people the only way to get a deal is to agree to the March 17th proposal. And nothing has changed since that time. The lawyers continue to say the right things for the company that, oh no, we want to get back to the table and get back to the table. But you ask them, are you willing to end the lockout? No. Are you willing to modify your proposals? No. So until we come on bended knee, the company's not willing to move. That's the current situation right now. But absolutely, our members don't want to strike. They don't want to lock out. They want to work. Right. We all come here because we got families. Right? This isn't life for us. We don't live to work. We work to live. And our members want jobs. They want a paycheck, and they want to go home, and they want to love their families.
Yeah, I think there's a misconception about, like, I think people think like, oh, I'm gonna go on the striking's cool. I'm gonna go on strike. It's gonna be cool. Nobody wants to be on strike. You're almost forced to be on strike, and it's to say like you're forced. They're locking you out, so they're not letting you work because you guys are trying to get a better contract for your workers and your families. So this, you guys are the I didn't know this, and we talked a little off air. You guys are the largest refinery in the Midwest, and the company wants to change the contract length in order to remove the facility from the national pattern bargaining timeline, creating a precedent for the oil companies to divide and conquer workers from one refinery at a time. Does that seem accurate to you?
Yeah, 100%. You guys did some pretty good research before we got on here.
Josh did the research.
No,
I'm just the handsome co-host.
well, I have a good team behind me. I'm not gonna lie. That's why I bring everyone along, and I kind of sit back and kind of enjoy just listening and taking a lot of it in. But yeah, it's been a while. It's been wild to read about. It's been wild to follow through social media as well. I want to say, in contact with a bunch of different USW workers between, you guys, uh, 12,775, 13,796. You guys in there in Indiana are really showing what the working middle class strength is like. It's just it's wild.
Yeah.
No, again, like as I said at the beginning, in Northwest Indiana, growing up union or working in union, it's a way of life. We're right outside of Chicago. It's the greater Chicago area, and we're the largest steel producing area in the country. And as you said, this is the largest inland. This is the largest oil refinery in the country outside of the Gulf of Mexico. So no, it's something that's near and dear to us, and just as oil bargaining, to your point of, getting us off of pattern, oil bargaining has been going on for, I believe, 61 years. This is something that the unions, whether it was pre steel workers, whether we were the oil, chemical, atomic workers, the paper, we had a lot of different union affiliations, but oil bargaining has been going on since 1965, and it's served the industry and the unions really well as a stabilizing force, so that across the country, you set a pattern for, hey, everyone's going to have a 3-year contract or a 4-year contract. We're all going to agree in the wage increases, insurance, those big issues. At the local table, that's when you hammer out your more detailed, specific things, job responsibilities, overtime rules, and stuff like that. So yeah, this has been going on. National oil bargaining has been going on since 1965. And we've had very few since 1980. I believe we've only had one strike and one national strike since 1980. Now, since in the last 23 years, I believe it is, there's only been 2 lockouts in oil. Only been 2 lockouts in oil. And there's one thing in common with those 2 lockouts. The lead negotiator, the first one was in Beaumont, Texas. There was an Exxon Mobil oil refinery. In 2019, the company had proposed to get them off pattern by giving them a 6-year contract when everyone else, national oil bargaining was a 4-year. The company proposed 6 year. The membership in that local, the membership was divided, and they ended up agreeing to the 6-year contract. The very next contract cycle, the company just put pretty much what they have on the table for us, proposals that absolutely gutted their contract. And when the union finally, the discussions broke down, and the union was going to serve them strike notice. The company turned around and locked them out for 10 months. The lead negotiator then was hired by British Petroleum the very next year, and he's been running the Whiting negotiations in the 2022 bargaining, and in this round of bargaining. So the one thing in common between the 2 lockouts in oil in the last 20 something years has been one person, and British Petroleum thought it was a good idea to hire him and bring him here. So that's kind of a little.
That is not good faith bargaining. I can tell you that.
It's not.
That
It
is
was
dirty.
very
That is dirty pool. Yeah, as
clear
dirty
from
as the
beginning,
water that they ruined.
Clear that they did not want to do.
Yep.
What's happening right now is exactly what they wanted to happen. But we believe that they've gambled wrong. They miscalculated the strength of this region. They miscalculated the strength of our membership.
Hey, can I actually, so misconception on my part, and this is why you should never really assumed Indiana being a strong union state or area. Can you get into like the labor movement a little bit in Indiana? Like I don't think it's a right to work state, but you never really hear about it. And when it comes to like in the Northeast here, it's a strong labor area. Like Detroit, obviously, Pittsburgh, but you never really hear about Indiana. Can you just talk a little bit about how labor in Indiana, but also the public's feel? I'm sure there's a lot of people affected by this through family and friends. Just the public's perception of labor in Northwest Indiana or Indiana in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you just said 2 things that were very important. Northwest Indiana and Indiana, 2 different entities, right? So we live in Northwest Indiana. When we turn on the TV, we're watching Chicago TV. We're Bears fans. We're Blackhawks fans. I'm a Sox fan. Some people are Cubs fans. But Yeah, so it is. So Northwest Indiana is a heavily industrial area. We're actually, like I had mentioned earlier, we're the largest steel exporting region in America, right? Everyone thinks of Pittsburgh, thinks of that area for steel. Steel is strong here. Skilled trades are incredibly strong here. We have generation after generation of union members here. This oil refinery. It goes on and on. So Indiana is you mentioned asked about right to work. Indiana actually did switch to they did pass right to work several years ago, which stripped us away. We had language in our contract that said if you worked here, you had to belong to the union. With the stroke of a pen, the Indiana legislature and the Indiana governor took that language away from us. But that being said, we've got around 800 members and we have 100% union density. So every person has a right to choose, which we don't like it, right? We don't like right to work. But what does it say when you can choose a scab? You can choose to enjoy all the benefits of a labor union and not pay your dues. That's what right to work is. You could enjoy all the benefits and be a freeloader, and we have 0 members in our refinery that choose to do that, which goes back to we think that this company miscalculated. They in Beaumont, Texas, they were, I believe, about 54% union, 46% non-union back in 2019 when the company started that process with them, and then locked them out. That's a much different story than 100% union.
Hmm.
Real quick, Greg, do you have any scabs in your branch?
No, we're 100%. And the thing is, like Eric said, like everybody, if we when we've had them, and before when I first started, there was a couple, and what people didn't realize is like that person would get in trouble, and you'd see them walking in the office with the union steward, and I even as a young carrier, I'd say, well, I thought they weren't in the union. Why is the steward protecting them? People, you still gotta protect them. Everybody else is paying dues. They're getting the work for free. So that's why it's never really been at least in my office, we've always been 100% or close to it in my 20 plus years. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I believe we only have one in our
Yeah.
branch is
Yeah.
what it is. We're very good at getting our members into the union, into the
Yep.
fold.
Yep.
Another issue we came across was that during the negotiation, they were looking at trying to cut 100 union jobs while asking the remaining members to take a pay cut and demanding the union to give up seniority and bargaining rights. Is that correct?
Well, actually, when the initial proposal was about 200 union jobs, and that's because they were trying to take one of our most highly paid operations jobs, our board operators, and make those management jobs. They've since gotten off of that proposal, so now their proposal's around 100 union jobs. They want to eliminate our entire environmental tech department. They want to eliminate our carpenters, which we call them builders. They want to eliminate our entire builder department, our truck garage, our HVAC, and our fresh air. And then from the remaining craft lines, they want to try to offer buyouts to the rest of those groups, which totals to about over 100. Now, when I first came onto this board, when we were on strike in 2015, I came on in 2014, we had around a little over 1,100 members. Since then, we've had 2 severance packages because of corporate downsizing. We've gone from around 1,100 members to 800 members. And now they wanted to cut another 200 members, and we've got them to a spot of around 100. But so we're going to go from around 1,100 to 700 members in their proposal in just a matter of a few short years, and it's absolutely unacceptable. In our proposal, our counter proposals, we've had multiple counter proposals. Was like, listen, we don't want to be talking about job cuts. We don't want to ever lose the position, but if there are job cuts to be made, we want to see voluntary only, and somebody that wants to stay, you'll backfill. Let the people that want to go, give them a severance, and then let them backfill. And the company has made no movement in that direction whatsoever. They want to basically dictate who goes and who stays. Then for the remaining people, they want to reclassify every job classification, call it something different, and offer a different base wage. Now, most classifications, the base wage under the company's proposal is going to be less than it currently is. So, if you got a classification that's currently making $45 an hour, the company's proposal might be to take it down to $40 an hour. And then on top, then they'll add the national oil bargaining raise of like the first year's 4%. So they'll take them down $5 an hour and then give them a 4% raise from that new one. And then they're telling the public, well, hey, we're offering everybody raises. What are you talking about? I mean, I guess they just think everyone's stupid and nobody pays attention. But no, they're trying to cut wages across most classifications and eliminate jobs. The bargaining rights piece is just an absolute deal breaker for us. If we were to accept the proposal as it currently sits, I mean, at some point, it's like you're going to lose all bargaining rights. And I feel for you guys. You guys are talking like coming from federal government positions. We see it in the state position. Our teachers, where legislatures have stripped federal or state workers from bargaining rights. Currently, private sector employees enjoy more bargaining rights, and we want to hold on to those bargaining rights. And the company is proposing to eliminate those.
So some of those union jobs are environmental safety jobs. Lake Michigan is the region's main source of drinking water. By doing this, the company clearly is putting the entire community at risk, wouldn't you say?
I would say so, 100%. Right. So why would you get rid of your in-house environmental technicians unless you wanted to wipe your hands of it, right? So now, if something happens, they want to be able to blame somebody else. And I mean, there's no other reason for it. I mean, they're currently paying third-party contractors more than they're paying our people. And they want to act like this is, they're not even saying it's a cost savings. They're just saying it's not core business. They don't want to have anybody work here that's not their core business. And it's, when you try to ask them what that means, they don't even know what that means. It's just a lawyer speak for, we want to downsize, we want to get rid of proprietary personnel. But it's absolutely, our environmental techs are fantastic. Most, like they came from other jobs inside the refinery. Most of them, they know the refinery inside and out. They can cover a ton of ground quickly. They know things from a distance. They can see things. They can smell things. They can hear things. They know what they're doing. When a company wants to bring a third party in, it's typically, for in our experience, it's only been because they just want to be able to wash their hands of responsibility.
Oh, of course. I mean, when we work for the post office and they call everything, we don't downsize, we right size. That's right. You've heard that enough, right,
Yeah.
Greg?
Well, I mean, I understand where British Petroleum is coming from. They only made a profit of $7.5 billion last year. Yeah, I mean, they gotta, sometimes you gotta, when you make only 7.5 billion, you gotta tighten those bootstraps. But yeah, and their total revenues were 192 billion. So when we talk about Eric, we talk about our job in the postal service. The post office has a operating revenue of about 80 billion dollars, but then they lose $8 billion. So in postal talk, that'd be like if the post office had a revenue of $80 billion, but then they made a profit of 15, and then they didn't give us a raise. So I don't really feel bad for British Petroleum because they seem to be just doing all right, even with the as I learned from Landman, the price of oil is trading at about 96. You want it to be at about 78, as Billy Bob said in Landman. But when it was trading at $46 a barrel back during COVID, when there was no demand for it, and when they didn't really come to you guys and say, "Hey, can you do us a favor?" It just feels like whenever they're making a profit or not making a profit, their attitude doesn't change. I mean, they don't come to you guys and say, "Hey, we're making a big profit. Here's more money." Instead, it's always going to fall on the workers to get the, excuse my language, shit end of the stick here. What yet again with BP. You know,
Yeah.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
They love to talk out of both sides of their mouth, right? Like,
Right.
so one day they're saying that the refinery's running the best ever. Uh, why? Because, well, they got to say that I'm a manager, I'm a senior manager, and what I did made a difference, right? So this is the best refinery's ever been doing, and then the next day they're going to say, well, hey, we're not competitive. We need to be more competitive, and
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like, they don't ever want to say we're not making money. It's just we're not competitive. which is just ambiguous, right? When you say, well, what do you mean competitive? Who are you comparing yourself against? Can we see these financials? Can we see the numbers? And they'll never show you the numbers, right? It's just, no, we got to be more competitive, meaning we got to pay you less, give you less benefits so we can send more money to the shareholders. That's what more competitive means.
Yeah, usually it's top heavy. Like they're paying their top 75 people probably upper six figures, and they, and that's where the waste usually is, instead of the people that, protect the communities by, getting rid of environmental safety jobs. But as we know, British Petroleum is no stranger to environmental disasters. British Petroleum has been directly involved in several major environmental and safety incidents. Among them were in 2005, Texas City refinery explosion, which caused the death of 15 workers and which resulted in a record-setting OSHA fine. British Petroleum's largest oil spill, the wreck of the Torrey Canyon in 1967, and the 2006 Prudhoe Bay oil spill, the largest oil spill in Alaska's North Slope, which resulted in a $25 million civil penalty, the largest per barrel penalty at that time for a spill. British Petroleum's worst environmental catastrophe was in the 2010 Deepwater Horizon oil spill, the largest accidental release of oil into marine waters in history, which leaked about 4.9 billion. Wow, I didn't know it was that
Million.
much. 4.9 million. Oh, Townie wrote billion, I think. 4.9 million barrels of oil, causing several environmental, human health, and economic consequences, and the serious and legal public relations repercussions for BP, costing more than 4.5 billion in fines and penalties, and additionally 8.7 billion in Clean Water Act related penalties and other claims, the largest criminal result in U.S. history. Altogether, the oil spill cost the company more than $65 billion. But what we didn't mention there is it resulted in one of the worst movies ever made starring Mark Wahlberg, Deepwater Horizon, I think. So that they should pay another billion just for that. Okay. So I think what we're getting at there is this company is no stranger to screwing up, in my mind. And then you have this nice working class city up in Northwest Indiana, and these people just want to work, and their idea is to lock them out, bring workers in, divide and conquer, have people cross a picket line, which is a big no-no in my head. It is it's pretty sad that it's gotten to this after I just read their not so great history. So I don't know if you have a comment on that. There was a lot to take in, but
so British Petroleum has got a long history of being one of the worst actors in the oil industry. And the oil industry has a reputation for being one of the worst actors in all of industry. And British Petroleum is on the top of that list. And you see a pattern is they run as lean as possible. They take as many chances as possible until there's a disaster. The government steps in, they tighten the shit up. And then as soon as the government starts to turn their eyes away, they go back to who they are. They go back to running lean, read a book, run to failure. This is their motto. This is what they do. They can change their names. They can call it whatever they want. They can change their CEOs. At the end of the day, they continue to run as lean as possible. They try to skeleton crew things. They try to duct tape things together. And it's profits over safety. It's profits over people. They'll put out all the PR in the world, but anyone that's worked in one of these facilities knows that's not how British Petroleum runs.
Now, speaking about the profits and shareholders, it was my understanding that you've just returned from going over across the pond, going to the shareholders. Can you touch on that just a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So several of us from our local and from the international headed out to London several days ago for the annual shareholders meeting. We're all shareholders, right? So I mean, typically when you work for a company, at some point in time you've bought shares. So we all went ahead and did what we needed to do to give ourselves voting rights at the shareholder meeting. You could either vote your shares electronically, or you could show up at the meeting, hear what they have to say, potentially speak, and vote your conscience. Now, most people just ignore it completely, or they vote remotely. But we said, hey, this is a great opportunity. Go over there, let people know what this company's doing, and just make sure that people are aware of our plight. from the minute that we got got out of our van and stepped foot on their campus. So we got there about 45 minutes early. We didn't want to get stuck in traffic, whatever. Got there about 45 minutes early. There's probably 100 security guards spread all over the campus. And from the moment we stepped out of the van, we were harassed, we were followed, um, aggressively. I mean, we had people searching our bags on public sidewalks, but they were claiming, like, hey, this is our sidewalk. The only thing that's not British Petroleum's property is the street, and you're not allowed to be in the street. So we said, all right, well, then we'll walk away until it's time to come back in the meeting. So we walk about a half a block to the east, and security guards followed us there. We crossed the street, security guards followed us, came back. We were harassed from the moment that we got off. 9 o'clock hits, we go in. Three of us got through the metal detectors with just very little resistance. The other three of us, three of them got sent out into private rooms and were strip searched, literally strip searched, body searched. One person had their medications photographed. He had just came straight from the airport, so he had his duffel bag with him. Had his medications photographed. They took out every credit card out of his wallet, took photos of his credit cards, just completely harassed them. They did everything they could do to make you feel like you weren't supposed to be there. Then when we finally got through security, they delayed us, stalled us. They eventually let three people go in as guests only, said that, hey, we don't have what you have isn't proper proof that you're a shareholder. So we'll let you in as a visitor, but you don't have the right to speak and you don't have the right to vote. Three of us, and I was part of the other three, that we got kicked out. We were told, you don't even have we don't have any record of you. You got to go. And I'm talking physically, hands on shoulders. You got to come with me type of behavior. Now, we are all employees of this company. Oh, I caught myself. We're all employees of this company, and we're all shareholders of this company, and this is how they treated us. Those that did go in, then the entire time they got put into a separate room. They were told that the meeting room was at capacity. You have to go over here into this other room. They went into this other room, and the entire time they had security guards standing above their shoulders, and then they watched dozens of other people go into the room that they were told was full, the main meeting room. From there, we had a couple of ladies that had asked to go to the bathroom. They were followed into the bathroom by security guards. It got to the point where they felt so uncomfortable. The three that were in there said, we want to leave. And then security told them, no, you're not allowed to leave. So it was an absolutely disgraceful experience. So when it was all said and done, we were all denied our right to speak. We were all denied our right to vote. We were completely harassed throughout. So it really made it concrete for me who I was dealing with, who I work for. This is how this corporation treats its employees, how it treats its shareholders. I'd say the best part of the trip to London was then meeting with some of the London or the European. Unite is one of the major unions in Europe, and Unite actually had helped work to plan this event for us, put us up in hotels, and meeting with them. We're trying to work with union members in Europe to work on some actions that are going to help put pressure on British Petroleum going forward. But so spent a lot of time trying to get out there and speak our mind, just let people know what was going on, and we got what we expected though from this company.
Yeah, usually it's you usually hear like union thugs, the term you're in a union thug. There was definitely a party acting like thugs there, and it wasn't the union. But I was happy that you ended on a high note because I always say there's a reason why we call people in the union brother and sister, because you had brothers and sisters from across the globe that took you in and said, no, we're here for you. And that's actually a good ending to the story, that we are united, like just like Josh and I are united with you guys. We feel your struggle, and we are definitely rooting for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of differences, whether we're talking teachers, letter carriers, steel workers, oil workers. But at the end of the day, the movement's the same, right?
Mm.
And whether it's in the United States or whether it's in Europe, the movement's the same. And our brothers and sisters over there get that. And again, they help to they actually helped. There was a rail, there was a strike. Go figure. When we got to London, there was a strike on the rail lines. But the Unite workers got us picked up from the airport, taken to the hotel. They put us up in the hotel. They were helping make sure that we got from A to B as we needed over there. So it was a good experience from that aspect.
Literally international solidarity. I love that. That
Absolutely.
is
Yeah.
amazing.
It's
Um,
something that the steel workers have been working on for years. The steel workers have been working with the different unions in Europe for decades, trying to build those alliances. And it's something we're going to have to continue to do, and it has paid dividends and will.
well, I mean, in this day and age, this world, like everything is at your fingertip. Like it's wild. Sometimes I'll just hop on and I'll be looking up stuff, and I came across a 24-hour strike that was happening in Australia against the Australian British company, and it was just like out of nowhere. And you know you think sometimes you get very isolated, not only just in America, but like for us in the Northeast, you know, you get isolated in your own things, and you're not realizing that this happens all over the world. You know, workers need to, you know, come together and stand up for each other, you know, and I think that kind of segues really in to the next question we have about, you know, what is the most important thing that has affected the members? Like, what is their morale like? What are they feeling right now on that lockout line?
So to me, there's two pieces to the morale question. The morale as a union, to me, it's been through the roof from the very beginning. Early on, Greg, I think you had mentioned nobody wants to strike. I would disagree. We got plenty of guys that were looking to would love to strike minute one, day one, right? So there was some frustration that we weren't going out immediately. There's frustration. We're trying to keep the picket lines, the numbers on the picket line down so that it's manageable, so that we can use vans instead of buses to get people out, so that we don't need, you know, just massive amounts of food and water and things at the union hall. Like, so there's been a lot of frustration that we're trying to like keep things controlled and contained, which speaks to just the militancy of a lot of our members, which is a great thing. So the morale from that perspective is high. Morale from, but at the same time, we're also employees of a company, right? Most union members are proud as hell to be union members, but at the end of the day, we work so that we can go home and enjoy time with our friends and our family. And we also, people have pride in this refinery. This refinery was here before the British bought it. This refinery's been here for a long time. We've got families that their families can be traced back to the roots of this refinery. So we do have pride in this place, and so there is a very very low morale there, and it does hurt people. I speak to a lot of people that have been looking for jobs for the last several months, like just getting the feel like, hey, this is inevitable. So they're looking for a strike or a lockout job to keep food on the table, and they got to the point where it's like, I might not come back. I
Mm.
might just with that new job, and that hurts. Like to go from a place that people wanted to work, people loved coming to work. When I first hired in 2009, people loved coming to work, and this company has done everything they could since then to just continue to beat people down and make it a place that you don't want to come to work. It's just good enough that you won't quit. I truly believe that's what they
Right.
want. Is it's just good enough that it's not worth your time to go find another job.
They want like the post offices, just to bring it back to us. They want this place to be so undesirable that the people making they don't want you to make a lot of money. They just want it to just have the just enough workers. Maybe we'll call them carrier assistants, just to get the job done, make it undesirable, bring in, make it almost like a part-time job. And in our business, the customers suffer. They just don't get their packages, or they don't get their people still get mail. And I'm sure in Indiana, people get a lot of more mail because it is a little more rural, but in your business, it is safety. It is producing oil. It is literally pulling oil out of the ground, and like we talked about earlier, like there's hazardous stuff in the air if the job's not done correctly. So they are literally taking professionals out and making it undesirable. And when you make the job less appealing, people don't work as hard, I've always felt. And that's the scary part of it is you guys are kind of the wall between, you know, safety and not being safe right now. And the example of last night or the night before obviously shows that.
Yeah, and to be clear, and I've tried to say this from day one. We don't want to see anything bad happen
Right.
in there, but it is inevitable, and it's not because the men and women that are in there right now. Bad things aren't necessarily going to happen because of them. It's going to happen because it's going to happen. Like this company has neglected equipment for so long, it will fail. And when it fails, that's when people really earn their
Hmm.
money. And that's where having someone in there with 10, 20, 30 years experience really matters. And that is a huge concern of ours. Again, these are our friends and family that are working in there, a lot of them. Um, Now we do have a lot of people that are getting bussed in from down south that are just here to take our money and send it back home, and that's a whole different problem. But again, there's going to be bad things that happen in there. Last night's upset would have happened whether we were in there or not. The difference is how it's handled, and it is very concerning that they're gambling. They're absolutely gambling. That they're putting those people that are inside the refinery in a very bad spot, and something terrible is going to happen. And last night was a great example of they didn't even have the decency to tell the people on the picket lines that you need to evacuate. We told the people 150 feet away inside the fence line, shelter in place or put on SCBA. But you're on the picket line and we're not going to say anything to you because we don't want word to get out. But I mean, it's like, so yeah, they're gambling. They're gambling with people's safety, and it's the people that are inside, it's us on the outside, and it's the community. When
Mm.
when things happen in refineries, they can get real bad real fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine that's really rough. Following up more on a positive note, I saw that you guys had the national president, Roxanne Brown, come to the line.
Yeah, absolutely, Roxy. She was just elected president this year, and she's been fully behind us from the very beginning. So yeah, she came out and visited us at the hall, walked the line. We held a press conference with her, and we stay in contact. And she's ensuring that we have the full weight of the international behind us. Which there's so us going to London, that's something that we're not going to do on our own as a local, right? But when
Right.
you have the full weight of the international, it makes it so that you can get to London. We had members go down to Houston to go crash a conference down there that some of the VP um, salaried folks were presenters at a process safety conference down in Houston, and things like that. There is a lot of help that is coming from behind the scenes out of Pittsburgh between Roxanne and the entire staff. Mike Smith, who's the head of national oil bargaining. We've had a lot of folks that have been helping to make things happen. We've got a lot more in the works. Can't say what we don't want to say what they are before they happen, but we're
Of
going to
course.
continue to travel. I mean, we were just out in Washington D.C. before I was in London. Several days before I was out in Washington D.C. And again, that's thanks to the help that Roxy and the internationals put to get us out there, get us in front of every congressperson, every senator that we could speak to, and they're continuing to help us.
Do you guys do like a political fund or something like that? Like we have a political fund that goes into investing in um legislation to get passed for letter carriers or postal um regulations. Do you guys do any type of separate fund that's just like strictly aimed towards legislation?
Yeah, the steelworkers absolutely have a pack, and then each local can. We haven't. Our local has not taken that. We haven't gotten there. We've talked about it. We're getting trying to figure out it's you're always worried about the tax implications and things like that. So our local does not have a pack. We don't do that, but our district and our international does.
Okay, okay. Um, Speaking of legislation and important government people, you guys had the governor Mike Braun, and how'd that interact with the members? How'd the members feel about having a legislator or a governor there to speak?
Yeah, it was very interesting. It was very surprising.
I
So
was I was
Governor
floored by
Braun,
that.
Go, go, Governor Braun is I don't know that there's a lot that he's going to agree with labor on. He's on a very opposite end. He's a business owner. So the fact that the governor's office reached out to us and said, "Hey, can we come to your hall, visit you guys, and then go walk the picket line with us?" Like to me,
Wow.
that was I don't. I'm not saying that I'm going to ask everyone to go vote for the guy. Now, if he can make move some mountains, we'll reconsider. But the fact that so this is like to us, like to me, this showed this is not a political issue. This is not conservatives, liberals, Democrats, Republicans. Because when he was here, I mean, I asked him, why did you choose to come here? And he said that this is just not right. Like, to him, this was just a matter of right versus wrong, and
Hmm.
out to lock out people that are 800 Hoosiers, as we call ourselves, right? It was not good for the state, not good for the local economy, not good for anybody. We've got a war in the Middle East going on. We're all already seeing prices at the pump. So even if the governor doesn't care about a single one of the constituents, one of our family members, like right, it's an economic issue. When you take 800 workers, pull them out of the biggest oil refinery in the Midwest that supplies. We have pipelines directly to the Chicago airports. We fuel the Detroit airports. You're going to see, and it's not going to happen overnight because there's a lot of gasoline in storage in the Midwest. So they're pulling from storage right now, but on a daily basis, we run about 460,000 barrels per day when we're humming, and that's typically what we're shooting for. Since we've been locked out, they've been bouncing between 300 and 390,000 barrels per day. So it's you're not going to see a big shift overnight, but we are draining those stores in the Midwest of gasoline, and it's a matter of time. And we all know, like, prices will shoot up based on estimates, and then they'll take their time coming back down again. So we are going to see we're going to see an increase in gas price, diesel price, jet fuel, travel, which is eventually going to come down to commodities. So to me, what Governor Braun was out here because it hurt Hoosier families, and B, it just wasn't good for our economy. So it was good to see. Now, whether or not his office is able to put some pressure on British Petroleum, that's to be seen. And you had asked, how did the members feel about it? There's definitely a lot of members who they don't necessarily want to see politicians come out on our picket lines because they feel you're just there for a handshake and a photograph,
Hmm.
and I don't agree with them. But we'll never turn down someone with as long as that challenge is issued. Don't make this a photo op. If you make this a photo op, I promise that's going to backfire on you. And I think Governor Braun, I don't believe he's politically dumb. He wouldn't have been a senator and a governor if he was. He understands that if he comes out and does a photo op and does nothing to help us, he just burned 800 families, right? So that's well more than 800 votes. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that was actually surprising because I remember him as a senator, and you could probably tell what my politics are. Didn't really like him as a senator, but he came out there. Good for him. I mean, it shows that it's not all about politics because, and I don't actually, I'm going to give him credit. I don't think he went out there for a while because it actually would hurt him going out there and being associated with I'm sure their news will say a picket line, a strike, but it's really a lockout. But so I give him credit for doing that. And it's, we obviously tonight focus on the situation between BP and USW 7-1. However, right now there's another lockout happening at Northern Indiana Public Service Company with your siblings of USW 12775 and oh my God, my eyes are bad. 13,796 just a few days ago. USW 12,775 representing the linemen reached an agreement with 13,796. The clerical workers continue to negotiate. We know that even though all these battles are our battles for a strong and working middle class America, we don't expect you to comment on them. I'm sorry, Josh wrote this and I
That
am
that
struggling.
being
I
that
was
being
laughing so I have tears in my. But that being said, we did notice that that your members are showing solidarity through different actions. Have you visited these lines at all?
Yeah, I've had a chance to visit them a couple of times. I mean, more importantly than visiting lines, it's we've been really working together to share our learnings from running a picket line. The our brothers and sisters at those two locals hadn't been on strike since I believe it was 1980. My father actually, I had mentioned at the beginning, was a NIPSCO worker. He was on strike in 1980. So we were able to help give them a lot of information, like shared a lot of it. They helped us with a ton of information. So we've been working together prior to the lockouts about just shared knowledge on what to do. We had some of our members cut out some burn barrels and deliver some burn barrels to them. We had some members go out and help build shanties for them. So it's been a great collaborative effort. They've been doing the same thing for us.
With that being said, we had a carrier down in Florida, Brother John Murphy, and this carrier wanted to know how can letter carriers show their support for you guys when the lines are running, when the other lines running 24 hours, or how is it done? Like if carriers wanted to come out in Northwest Indiana or across another state want to come out and show some support, what can we do for you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. We're always welcome to visitors on the lines. We set up a website, supportoilworkers.com, that kind of gives a rundown on, hey, if you wanna join a line, pick a line, click here. If you'd like to support us monetarily, click here. If you'd like to put a support sign in your business window, click here. The easiest thing I would say for most people is if people want to make a donation at $10, every bit counts. That every bit helps. It actually, for us, it's easier if someone just wants to give us money instead of bringing cases of water in,
Right.
because we don't have all the room in the world to be storing all the cases of water and things like that. It's if somebody wants to send a check, then when we need, whether it's toilet paper, whether it's water, whether it's diapers, whatever it is, we're able to go get what we want, what we need when we need it. So on that website, supportoilworkers.com, it gives you the mailing address and what to make the check out to if you'd like to donate. If you do want to bring a hot meal, cold sandwiches, whatever, there's our addresses on there as well. We'll never turn down people bringing things. We just know it's a lot easier for people to. It's
Sure.
easier to just send an envelope, right? Put a stamp on an envelope and send it to us.
Yeah, we like that.
we love envelopes going through the mail. Well, man, I am stuffed with all that information, man. That being said, President Schultz, are there any things that you want to plug in which we didn't get to, or throw out any message that we didn't hit tonight?
I mean, I would say, I mean, I don't know what you guys are seeing from where you're at. The fact that you guys and I and others are talking says that the story is reaching across the country. I hope that people don't uh, miss the fact that at one point in time here we've had 2,600 locked out workers at the same time in one small part of the country. There is clearly a war on workers right now. Right now, this is not a good time to be a worker, and there's a reason for it. And if you don't put do the math and figure out that because of the administration, because the National Labor Relations Board is not functioning, because the EPA is incredibly underfunded and not functioning, because OSHA is incredibly underfunded and not functioning, because the Chemical Safety Board is completely underfunded and not functioning. If you please reconsider your position if you don't think that those things matter, and that you don't think that the reason British Petroleum and NIPSCO have taken these aggressive actions on workers is because of the political climate and because of just the social climate right now, then I beg you to please reconsider, because there is clearly a war on workers right now, and to me, it's obvious why there is.
Yeah, you couldn't say it better myself. They are taking advantage of a situation, a climate in this country where, and I was, as you were saying that, I was thinking the last time Josh had me on, we had Johnny Jones on that represents. I apologize for not knowing his actual number, but
So
they,
he represents TSA, the AFSCME Council
yeah,
100. He is the Secretary Treasurer. He
yeah.
also is the branch president of 1040.
Yeah, so we had him on, and it was when they locked out the TSA workers, and that's safety. It's public safety that they are whistling past the graveyard, as a guy I work with used to say about stuff in the post office when they weren't doing things right. They are just, it's just waiting for a catastrophe to happen, and I really hope it doesn't. I know you and your workers don't have it. It doesn't, but this is a time where, we work with people with political differences, different ideologies. I see it every day on Facebook with the different ideologies of postal workers, but I think we all can agree on we just want better pay, safe work environment, go home safe to our families. And I don't think there's ever been a time, and I don't know if it's going to happen in my lifetime, but there's never been a better time for a labor party in this country, because you're right. There is a war on workers, and it's going to come to a head with AI and everything that's going on with the administration. And I always say we have about 40% of our workforce that votes for the administration. And I think that if you sat them down and went through everything, you would say you're voting against your job. And that does, if it was roles were reversed for me, that would be tough for me to say, I don't know if I can vote against, vote for this person because this is just how I feel. It's how my ideologies are. But man, I just wanted to thank you for coming on. You're doing a great job. I don't think it's easy to travel from Indiana to London. I imagine there's no direct flights. Thank you for coming on. Get some rest. I hope this is um, resolved quickly. You know, but good luck in the future, and definitely stay in touch with us.
Thank you, brothers. Again, thank you for having me on. This was a pleasure, and appreciate that you guys are reaching out and looking to help spread our message.
And that's really the big purpose of the Solidarity Report. Here we just really discussed between the three Indiana unions, the over the seas unions that are all stepping up together over this plight is just astounding. And that's what we need going forward. And we are literally in a critical period in American history and for the labor movement as a whole. And just reading up on what is going on in Indiana itself, that three unions are demonstrating the resilience and the determination of the working class during these challenging times for laborers and labor unions is just, you guys are inspiring us. I just, that's what you guys are doing right now. You guys are literally showing us what it's like to stand up and fight. And as always, my friends, remember, together we are stronger.